IGY6Games, the gamers channel that brings you a variety of entertainment and content. Bo here. Before we kick things off, we'd appreciate the love by y'all sharing and hitting those icons that need to clicking. With that said, check out our social medias where we post daily and keep in touch with our followers. Live reaction to State of the Game.
Hello everyone, and welcome to State of the Game number 134 on September 25th. I know, 130. You didn't see it off screen. This week, we're talking about all things TU6 and episode 2. Anyway, we'll get to that in just a second. The things that you need to know are going to be talked about in just a second. So we'll get through that with our priority alerts section. We have a little thing that we like to show when we do that. Yeah.
Okay, a little transition.
I know, I'm still not used to it, man. We did some shiny new things. Anyway, this is for all the people that like to stick around and get the Cliff Notes version of the show, and then they can not be interested in what Frederick has to say, and then you can leave. You can play the game. Anyway, so
I won't do y'all like that.
Recap. So there was a maintenance yesterday to deploy TU 5.2. That's title update for those of you that don't know what TU means. That is Apparel Event number 4. Explorers has just gone live. There are improvements made to the game when using DirectX 12. We're happy with that on PC. Fixed an exploit that could cause players to gain an unintended amount of armor. That's a good news. Fixed an issue that could cause the client to crash when navigating the map menus on console. As you know as well, we have the PTS live at the moment, so PTS Wave 2. There's a current focus on balancing.
I wish console players could play that.
We'll talk more about how Frederick was involved in the weapon side of that very, very soon. Wave 2 patch notes can be found on the forum, so forums.ub.com. There'll be a link in chat. I'm sure that our mods will post. There will be some additional changes that will take place between the closure of PTS and TU6 release. There's one that I'm very excited about that Frederick's going to tell us about soon. Give us your thoughts, please. Answer the PTS survey. So there's a way that you can do it. There's going to be a link in chat to that survey, and we need your feedback because that is the best way for you to get involved in shaping the game.
Can't do it.
Also, at mission difficulty after the balancing changes present on the PTS, so we'll look at that. And we encourage you to try and clear heroic difficulty missions and give us your thoughts on the PTS forum. Heroic difficulty missions are no joke.
Yeah.
And since there are a lot of things that
They're
we're
actually
talk about,
fun.
like the gear game has changed and there's a lot of balancing things, we want to see how those heroic missions are working out.
Even if you don't feedback on it.
Exactly.
Do it so we can get timings and stuff.
Perfect.
Makes
PTS
sense.
will close on October 1st. So
Just for them to go to Breakpoint.
very soon.
Perfect.
I
I hate you PC gamers. I'm
that
just kidding. I
weekend?
love y'all. I'm going to be one maybe one day.
I'm not looking at a calendar. I'm dumb. All right. So we will talk more about this in just a second, but talents will no longer be stackable. We saw that feedback from the PTS.
Talents
not
no
going to
longer
right now.
Let's talk about it.
stackable.
Well, very soon. Explosive builds as well. We know people are talking about those a lot. We've seen discussions regarding
Especially in
explosive
PvP.
builds.
Yep.
Exactly. We'll be looking at that feedback. So we'll, yeah, that's on our radar for sure. All right, the apparel event is now live. So there's 4 new outfits with that. Actually, so this event started yesterday, and it's going to be live until episode 2, probably, because we're looking at mid. You can actually see that in a second, but mid-October is going to be when that all happens.
Mid-October.
This apparel event will end on October 15th.
What's that, 3 weeks or so?
Can we take a look at the outfits? That's possible? Ooh, okay. Oh no, the masks. So September 24th to October 15th for this apparel event. There's those 2 masks. I like that.
The one on the left is aight. One on the
creepy.
right's a waste of
Or
time.
one
Right.
type mask on the right.
Yeah, I like it. So outfits-wise, we've got the aviator. So if you want to look like Amelia Earhart, you can do that, which you should. And we've got a trapper as well. We have the
Boone, you mean?
paratrooper right there for you as well. And then there's also the space explorer if you want
Nice.
to
Represent that
roleplay
H-Town, baby.
You know, your space fantasy,
Nice.
which
like
which
it.
everyone should and likes to do. I mean, right?
I mean, you get to raid the Air and Space Museum, so
Sure.
Makes
you can,
sense.
You can just roleplay that whole
Yeah.
thing. So there's an article about all of this and how it works and all the intricacies of how you get things and all of that. But what you need to know is that if you log in, you will get a free key. So that's cool. If you have the season pass as well, you get 3 extras. It is worth noting though, so there's been a bit of confusion out there online. I've been guilty of being a little bit confused myself as well. These are caches, so the field proficiency caches and the dark zone caches that you can get keys from have never been guaranteed to drop an apparel event key. They are percentage chances.
Yep.
And also, the DZ caches have a slightly lower chance than the field proficiency caches.
Because you can get them so
more of
quick.
just in terms of
That
the
makes sense,
frequency,
Hamish.
when playing the Dark Zone. So don't be confused. If you don't get it, a key from opening a cache, that's natural. It's percentage based.
That's for the noobs,
There's also been
son.
some changes to the Apparel Event items and what happens when the Apparel Event ends, and all of those details can be found over on the website. There's an article over there. I do want to clear up a few things about the episode 2 and TU6 stuff before we go in depth with Frederick. So, episode 2 and TU6 are one and the same.
Okay.
It's a Finkel is Einhorn, Einhorn is Finkel situation.
Episode
If you've watched Ace
2.
Ventura, which you should.
TU6.
No, that movie is aged
Very
terribly.
relevant
It's
reference.
so bad. That movie's really bad. Don't watch it.
But that means content.
It
Yes,
does. It means
additional
there's a lot
content.
in episode 2 and TU6.
That's what I'm talking about.
So, just so you know, TU6, episode 2 are the same thing. It's the biggest update to the Division 2 to date.
Biggest update, eh?
Episode 2 will continue the game's main narrative, and we are going into the Pentagon this time. So if you are out there and you're interested in narrative, looking at mutates, you will want to get into the Pentagon because there's some story to be found. There's also, we haven't talked about this yet. There's a new specialization
Yay!
coming in episode 2.
Yeah, new
Pretty excited about
I know
that.
what it is.
specialization.
Yep.
Frederick knows what it is.
We're not going to tell you right
We're not
now.
going to tell you. It's really cool.
We're going to
and-
show you pretty soon, though.
Exactly. In
Yeah.
the coming weeks, you'll find out more about that one because it's very different.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think it's something people will be excited about.
All right, it's gonna be something like
so
Flash. I bet you
Based
get
on
to run
all
real
of the
fast and just
observations, not
fucking
from
melee
BTS, but
everybody.
All of the months since the game has been released, all the feedback,
That's
the data
my
we've
guess.
got, there's been a huge effort to revamp. I'd say the core experience
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Division 2, right?
I mean, we can build a game on theory, but now when we have millions of players actively trying to gain any
Don't
edge they
embellish
can,
there,
we
buddy.
can do some more informed rebalancing. So TU6 is really about rebalancing the game across the board, making sure that we don't do little spot changes, but just take it as one whole big thing.
Exactly. So it's not just the PvP we talked about last week. It's not just the crafting and recal we talked about the week before. The gear game. We're going to go dive
Fix
into that.
the
in
loot.
just a
Give me
second.
that
There's a
loot,
lot
that
in
precious.
TU6 in episode 2. We should just call it episode 2 because it's the same thing.
Let's just do that.
And we are currently planning to release that in mid-October. So mark that
Mid-October
on your
release.
calendars. Tell who you need to tell, if that's your boss, if that's your significant other, if it's, I don't know, anyone else, just to make sure that the right people need to know about it. All right, we're going to get stuck into our next segment, which is our developer interview. Let's go with that.
Yay, developer interview.
Nifty trailer for
I know,
that.
man.
I like the intros.
We should probably not talk during those transitions.
No, I know,
but
it
I can't
spoils
help
it a
myself.
little bit.
Every time I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, it's coming.
You got to tell the guys to
PTI.
get on the mute button.
Exactly.
We're going to spoil it.
I know. How you doing, man?
Yeah, pretty good. Exhausted. I just cycled here, but I'm ready.
Yeah, spoilers. Literally an hour ago, Frederick runs into the room while we're setting up. He's like,
Emergency.
Emergency, I got to go home real quick.
Yep. Well, there you go. I'm back.
We made it work though, and you got here in time.
You can shit at
Ish.
the office,
Astute
Frederick. All
people
right.
will also have noticed that we did push the stream a little bit just to make sure that Frederick would get here in time. Sorry about it, but we wanted to make sure that you're here because you have a lot to tell
why
us
he's
about
sweating.
what's going on.
Because there's a lot going on in TU6.
He
so
fucking forced
episode
it.
2.
All right.
Let's just call it episode 2.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
So let's start with the bird's eye view, and I want to reiterate what is happening. Well, at least let's start with design intentions.
Did
Yep.
he wash his
Design
hands?
intentions when it comes to
That's
gear.
the question.
Gear needs to be varied. Like we have observed a build meta that's solidifying. We need to make sure that builds are broad, that you can build with sort of anything you want, that you can really choose the style of build you want, and it works and it's balanced. We also want to make sure that nothing gets too cheesy.
To meta,
And mostly in this patch also, we wanted to make sure that things are intuitive, make sure that you can have an idea about a build, kind of go
And
out
follow
there and
through.
start gathering things with the targeted
makes
loot
fucking sense.
and make that build. You know, plan, take action, and
Execute.
see the results.
Yeah, so the targeted loot thing is new.
Yes.
We talked about it, if you weren't here 2 weeks ago, it's a new feature coming in episode 2 where you basically go to your map.
Yep.
You hit a
D-pad up
toggle,
if you're on console.
and then
Yep.
it'll show you where you can find what you're looking for, basically.
Different brands, different gun types.
Right.
all of
Target
that.
looting.
Exactly. So if you're looking for something, you now have a place to go and get higher chances of getting it. If you want the details, you'll want to look at the VOD from 2 weeks ago, which is myself and Nikki talking about this feature. It's really freaking cool.
We have tested
It
it,
is
on
cool.
PTS, and we've done some
kinda had it in the
changes
Division
that
1.
You'll see when it goes live, so you'll actually be able to
Showstopper.
find gear sets on there as
Barrett's
well.
chest piece.
I know there's been a lot of questions on how to find gear sets, and they're going to be on there.
God damn it!
We're gonna
What's the
look around the
SMG
gear
that we
set
all
stuff
use?
because, again, like
Some of
I
them.
said, we did talk about this with Nikki at the time, but gear sets are more your
Oh, no, this is gonna
purview
bother
than
me.
His. That's
Yeah, sure.
He's the delivery guy. We talked about this. So Nikki's the postman. You're the person who's sending.
Right, me and my team, we
you're the
make all the components, the actual gear, the talons, all of that stuff. And the gear sets are part of that.
Cool. So we'll come back around to that. Obviously, last week we covered some of the PvP things, but I guess missing from that discussion is the impact of all of these gear changes that are going to change the way that PvP is played.
You can't talk about PvP as just a set of features, because PvP happens when you use all of the game in interaction with other players.
Yeah, because
The whole gear meta, the talents,
Yeah.
the balancing of it, of the guns,
Throwables,
all of that affects
skills.
how PvP feels in the end, right?
So last week we covered the some of the features, like which the
Yeah,
ODZ,
new conflict
like
mode.
ambushes.
Yep.
There's a new map in PvP. There's
Yes.
changes to the way that matchmaking is done.
We're removing stat normalization, so we're only running the PvP version of talents.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all of that is definitely part of the way that people will experience the DZ. But then there's all that gear stuff as well.
Yeah.
So you've been watching people on the PTS play and.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Nope.
we recently had an ETF, so we have contact with all of those
Sure.
people. They give us hardcore feedback, and they're harsh.
Missed
and
my
fair
invite.
to us. So they've been a great help too. Shout out to those guys.
Exactly. I was unfortunately not here.
I know.
I missed out. Feels bad. The other
telling
thing
me.
that I know the people watching this show are, let's be real, more of our hardcore audience, a lot of our experienced players, but I don't want to assume. So if you are new to the division, welcome. Hi.
Hello,
There are some
hello.
things in episode 2 that will really appeal to the people who are jumping into the game for the first time.
Right.
Also,
Yes.
you may have friends you want to invite to the game, so we want to make sure that they have a good experience. What are some of the things that the dev team have been doing to make it easier,
Yeah.
especially with the onboarding process?
So Ada and her team have gone through the whole start of the game, changed the whole flow of how you go from that haven in the beginning and to the White House and to the initial missions and stuff.
That
Changed
shit
how
didn't need to
tutorials
be
work.
worked.
Change kind of the pacing of all of that.
That was
make
a
sure
waste.
that every detail that you do need to know has good hand holding. Really made the whole start of the game a lot smoother and a lot friendlier to people. It's actually
In-game
been a quite big effort.
PvP
And part of that will
in
spill over,
game.
even if you're
That should be the focus.
even if you're a late game player already, because now we'll have this place where you can look up all the old tutorials and all the old information text and actually read back on things that popped up at a tutorial at some point when you were dodging a grenade and kind of dismissed it.
You're like,
You can go back and check that now.
No, thank
But
you.
really playing from the beginning of the game is a lot smoother because we want to make sure that it's
Y'all got game of
it's
the
a
month.
nice and easy ride to
Y'all's
get into
initial
our game as
month.
well. Like it's not all about the end game and the hardcore.
Yes, it
Well,
is
that's
about
good
the
to know.
end
So
game.
if you have
God
friends
damn
who want
it!
to get into the game, make sure that they know that it's not as
Daunting?
daunting. I think.
Yeah.
Great word, man.
Let's go.
I was going to say alienating, but daunting is way better. No, I think that's super cool. Someone mentioned that the way that skills are rolled out to players is different now,
And skills have
Less
these
overwhelming
little
and-
indications that tell you if they're easy or hard to, or complicated to use, if
That's
they're good for solo or group, those types of things. as well.
What?
all right. Okay, I want to dive a bit
That's
deeper
for
into the
noobs.
things that you are in there tweaking, the nuts and
Fiddling
bolts
with,
stuff,
yeah.
right? Balancing. Can we start
Yeah.
with talents?
You want to
Balancing.
start with graphs, but let's start with talents.
No, we'll get into the graphs. So,
Yeah.
so we'll go with talents and then we'll go with
Right.
weapons.
So we went over every talent in the game and have adjusted them, buffed a whole bunch that were underperforming, either nerfed or changed into a more sane way, some things that were overperforming
Yeah.
or that were dominating, changed some functionality on some things that didn't make sense. Overall, just the goal has been to make more fun talents viable.
I'd
use
love
in
to
your
use the
builds. If you like
Firefly
the look of
more.
a talent,
Love throwing that little
shouldn't be a
paper
trap. It
fucking
shouldn't be
airplane.
something that if you're building around this, it turns out it was awful. Like everything should be much more viable after this patch.
What can you tell us about talent stacking
Right.
in episode 2? Because that's the
It's
like-
been a
Oh my
bombshell.
God, this
let's
is
be
talents.
honest.
I've been
to
talking
some of our
skills the
hardcore
whole
players.
time.
it's huge. I mean, it sounds like such a
me.
small thing, right? Talent stacking,
Yeah.
but it's huge.
So we have these. We call them basic talents, like things like precise or surge, or those things that
Hard
really
hitter.
are only a stat boost. So they're very passive. They're always on. They have no conditions, right? And the thing about them is we want to make sure that they're powerful. But if you make something powerful that you can have everywhere, you're going to have it everywhere.
Yep.
Yes, I have hard hitting on every slot.
Immediately.
Hard hitting on every slot.
Exactly.
So instead, we decided to make each of them more powerful, but make it so that you can only get the benefit from them once. So if you have them in 2 slots, you're still just going to get the benefit once.
Holy fuck.
And what that does is make sure that we can have them be powerful, but also make sure that other talents get use or are competitive, even if they have
Holy shit, that
conditions
will
or build
diverse.
requirements and stuff like that. Because turns out,
Diversify
once you
builds,
do dive
man.
into those types of builds,
I hope y'all put a lot of
that's
work in
fun.
this balance.
It turns out that there's a lot of fun little gameplay mechanics
Fun?
and challenges. I know, right?
Whoa.
Gasp! Trying to make the game fun. But I mean,
No, that's
it's
cool,
like we heard the phrase like being a prisoner of hard hitting. Like yes, you want lots of damage to elites, and you can get lots of damage to elites, but getting it by sacrificing all of your talent slots for hard hitting ends up not making for such a dynamic and fun build. And I know it's going to disappoint some people. Some people are going to say, "Well,
I want it for a
why did
fucking
you go all in on
change.
that?" Or,
Do the
like,
damn thing,
destructive
Frederick.
or something like that. But really, then you can't have them be very powerful because then it's the default choice
Exactly.
everywhere. So that's the reason.
Good
behind it.
logic.
I still feel, at least though, that you still have the ability to have the all-in mentality, right? But your
Yeah, sure.
But your all-in mentality, if you are a glass cannon player, is just your all-in is making different choices now.
You find a
Yeah.
spectrum
You get a
of
variety.
gun-enhancing talents.
Yeah, you're like, I want.
And we've seen some really cool builds starting to emerge in the PTS that do a lot of different cool active things that all support the same idea.
Maybe I
like
should watch somebody play this
tree winding,
PTS,
you
eh?
know, utility player. Or
Why do I
TT player.
keep saying, hey, I'm
Off the
not
top of your head
fucking
that sticks
Canadian.
out to you?
I
love my
One
Canadians,
of our
so
old
don't-
ETF players
don't
keeps
crush
posting
us.
really cool builds. A build that was like it had patience, so you got to play from cover. It had this new talent that
New
vigilance,
talent.
I think, that means you have to dodge damage to get weapon damage out.
Oh,
And you had
I like that.
I think is it Wicked, where you have to actually damage an enemy with skills, and he had Spotter, so he had to use skills, he had to use cover, he had to dodge damage, and all of that led to huge damage output,
Yeah.
but with a really active
Yeah,
playstyle,
if
and
you
that's
play
fun.
this
Yeah,
way.
it's my
I like
play
that. That's
style,
really cool.
baby.
What can you tell us about weapons?
Weapons,
So part of the whole thing is to make sure that
balance.
let's be real, that no weapons are duds, and that there's no like and that there's
P416.
less hidden knowledge where like if you don't know exactly the gun model that's the best.
Exactly. There you go.
You're
Custom.
underperforming. So we went through every single weapon in the game, went through a
By
bunch of mathematical
custom
modeling, tested them a
P416.
bunch against NPCs and players, and rebalanced essentially everything
Okay. With that balance, what's the aim?
to make sure that all weapon types and all weapon models
Y'all try this in
are
TD1.
viable in some way. Like they'll have slightly different roles, but that they're all viable, and you're not going to underperform.
Make the
You're not gonna
AK
be
great again.
hindered from, I don't know, making a build that can beat heroic or play in the dark zone with any weapon type that you choose, right?
Okay. Because we have some.
Come
we
on,
have
is
some
that
graphs
really
we can actually
possible? There's always going to
look
be a
at,
meta.
because that's kind of where I was going with that question. Is the goal to make it so that all weapons have similar, they tend towards the same damage over time?
Yeah.
Or some are more
Bursts.
burst? Or
So
gonna be
there
about
are
the
exactly
PvP
those
burst.
types of considerations, right? Like some weapon types, first of all, are more bursty, like shotguns, clearly. But then there's also things like if something has a really high rate of fire, you're going to spend more time reloading because you'll run out of bullets faster. And so we have to compensate for that over time and consider that they don't get too bursty in that first mag. So there's a lot of little considerations, but mostly we just want to make sure that they're all endgame viable, which means often sustained damage.
All right, let's take a look at the first graph.
Good
because,
luck,
I
man.
like looking at data because here we go.
Dada.
Okay,
That
so what are we
looks
looking at
pretty
here,
good.
Frederick?
So first of all, shout out to people, and you know who you are.
It was Taylor.
Actually, Taylor made this pretty, but Mike from the ETF helped me actually do a lot
Good
of the
job,
math,
Mike.
on this stuff. So this is like looking, you see it's squiggly lines for all of the different weapons. That's when you
My
shoot,
TAR
the damage goes
21
up.
is
The flag
shit
stops
now.
reloading, right?
And then there's the flak, there's when you're reloading.
Gotcha.
So you can see kind of some weapons underperforming, some weapons overperforming.
I like that orange.
No big
Who's the
surprises
orange?
there. And then
The
we
47
try
or
to
G36?
remodel the damage on them so that they
Looks like
all
the
align a lot better,
AK-47.
because they tend to have the same type of
Oh,
rolls. They're
or is that the
really
416?
bursty assault rifles per se.
I'm colorblind,
Can
goddammit.
we just hard transition to the after TU6 image and take a look at where we're at now. So bringing everything.
Oh, fuck me.
Some of the considerations here are
Wow.
what kind of mods do they have? Some things need to be
That
stronger
burnt
in
orange
baseline
one
if they
looks
don't
nice.
have as many mod slots, for instance, and so on and so forth. So they're not all equal. You're still going to find things
So are these
that fit your build.
the tests that you've done here, are these unmodded or modded?
We have graphs for both modded and unmodded, for
Okay.
both with and without extended mags, for instance.
But at least you can see the intention here is very
Yeah.
much to bring things much more in line with
And
each
what
other.
that means to just a player is if you pick up a gun and you like what's on there in terms of talents and you like the feel of it, it should be a viable thing to use in your build.
Cool.
That's
We
the
actually have
ideal.
some more graphs. They'll look very similar, but they're actually different. But we've done,
There you go.
you've been doing a lot of this work on all weapon families, obviously. So I think the other one we have was it shotgun?
No,
LMGs.
go LMG. Thank you.
LMGs. Okay.
And LMGs, because of how
M60,
vastly they
holy
differ in
shit.
reload time
I was
and
just gonna
mag
say.
size,
Yeah,
they
I
ended up
currently have
being
an
quite
M60 equipped.
different. But we modeled them mostly assuming an extended mag, just because like we're aware of the
Fair
meta.
assumption.
Yeah, because the
Uh,
fucking NPCs
that's,
are bullet
You can see
sponges.
here the M60 vastly outperforming, and also outperforming assault rifles by a pretty decent margin as well. Whereas, well, you can see some guns really underperforming, like the HK and so on and so forth.
So are all of these done in their optimal range as well?
This is assuming optimal range.
Okay.
But some guns, like the M60, that we knew we needed to take down, one of the things we did then was, well, it has a quite severe optimal range fall off. So let's just boost that instead, so it gains a little bit of an upside
Okay.
if it loses raw damage.
Cool. Let's take a look at the after TU6 image. There you go. Ooh, this is
Nice,
so satisfying,
tight
man.
Nerdy
grouping.
graphs.
Ooh.
And this is with the max.
All right, still looks
attachment
like
as well, as you
M60
can see
edges
in the
out.
I like it. Really cool.
So those are the type of things we've
that
been doing, but
purple
also
doesn't look
actually
bad. Who's
testing
purple?
them in real time.
Haha, the
because
saw.
Math is good, but,
M249
only
Bravo.
takes you so far. And the first version of this was on PTS. We
Well-
got feedback.
There we go. Hang on. We're getting it. We're back. All right.
Oh, we're back.
Sorry.
And the first version we tested on the PTS Wave 2. A lot of the guns, not all of the changes. We got some feedback, we saw some outliers. So there'll be some more adjustments for the actual live patch as well. Most notably, shotguns weren't yet adjusted when PTS2 went out.
So, thanks for the segue.
Segue,
When
yeah.
PTS2 went out, there was a lot of discussion, naturally, about the
Console
Eagle
gamers.
Bearer specifically.
Yep.
Fuck.
The damage coming down.
Eagle
and
Bearer
there wasn't
getting nerfed.
We didn't put the context out there of the whole picture.
We didn't
right?
really have the context yet because we were
Sure.
working on it.
Okay.
I do remember.
So what
I
we
did say
got?
one thing in that stream, that the whole picture wasn't going on the PTS.
No.
Because Bruce told me that that was the case.
Like
I didn't
Bruce
exactly know
said,
what they
let
meant at the time,
Bruce.
but
Oh shit! I fucked that lyrics
not everything
up.
was in PTS2 when it came out. So people saw the damage nerf
Yep.
and not the whole picture, right?
Yep.
So I think people now have seen and experienced how you've been
Our
handling that.
intention, at least, yeah.
All right. So I guess let's talk about what you've been doing with exotics, not just the Eagle Bearer, but
Right.
all of them.
Yeah, Matt over at, shout-outs to Matt over at Redstorm, who helps me out with some of the exotic stuff like that. Went through all of the exotics, and you've seen some of the adjustments on PTS Wave 2. And our goal is really that they should be awesome, because they're exotics, if you play to their strengths.
I still don't
If
remember
you
the
do
fucking
thing that makes them
SMG from
exotic, which
TD1.
is mostly the talent,
Pissing me off.
they should perform really well. And that's why kind of the raw damage output went down.
Fuck! What is
while
it?
the talent output went up by the equivalent amount.
Ooh,
at the
almost
end,
have it.
Once we'd patched in everything. And you've kind of seen the similar adjustments to the other
Damn it, I
exotics. And some
lost it.
exotics were just worse. Pestilence, for instance, that was just not viable. And so we've done a pass on all of those exotics to make sure that they should be fun, should be extremely good if you play to their style.
Yeah. So the fun part comes from the talent and the unique identity of those
Yeah.
weapons. I think it's fair to say that there's not the exotic flavor if just what you're
If it's
getting out of
just
it.
raw
It's just
numbers.
the base damage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not spicy, you know.
Spicy, good, yeah. I mean, that's we're very aware how it looked, and that's kind of
Sure.
what it is when you do multiple waves of PTS. You get like part way through, and everybody gets to be part of development.
Exactly.
That's the way it
Except
goes.
console
Sorry
players.
for scaring you on that one. But have you been talking and watching the conversation around those ones as well? Because
Oh
people
yeah,
seem to.
I mean, sure, and playing and testing it
Yeah, yeah.
and debating it internally
course.
and talking to both ETF and players online.
Cool. There's also the part. I said cool. That was a shout out to Chris. Gear sets are now 4 pieces and they've been rebalanced. So, like we kind of alluded to before, there's a lot coming into use. There's so many different, what may seem to be small changes on the surface, but change the gear game completely. The requirement of gear
Changing
sets
the
coming
gear
down from 6
game
to 4,
completely.
and then opening up those 2 slots.
For exotics, for instance,
Possibly. We'll talk
or
about those in a sec.
named gear pieces.
Exactly.
Name
there's a
gear
lot of-
pieces, eh?
Yeah, the idea
Fuck,
is to
stop
make
saying
a-
Abo.
So the gear sets are great because they're a shake and bake build. Like they'll do a thing and they say on there what they're going to do if you collect all of them. But by lowering the amounts required, it means you can do some combinations with other gear and really opens up for more builds. And it also meant that we could move them, the 4 pieces for everything out in the general loot pool. Like so all 6 current gear sets are available to anyone, even if they can't play the raid for some reason. But we also shifted it so that the backpack and the chest, which are like the big bragging right pieces, they're more powerful than the other pieces.
Right.
And for the 3 gear sets that were in the raid, those pieces are still exclusive to the raid.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm really interested to see is because the PTS is great, and we get great testing and we get great numbers. and
Except
all
from
sorts of things,
console
but
players.
There's nothing that compares to the sheer amount of data that you get from the mass of the whole population, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be crazy builds.
And just with builds as well, we wanted to test the loot targeting system in this PTS, which meant that we weren't handing out as many finished builds to players joining the PTS.
Yeah, let them work up
as
to it with
maybe
the
we
target
have
loot.
in
Makes
the
sense.
past, because we really wanted to make sure that people actually were motivated to go out and farm as well. So it's a bit of a balance there to get the right type of feedback.
Yep. I've seen a lot of good feedback on that one as well. We talked
Excuse that
about
notification.
2 weeks before the new UI that is going to be seen in the recalibration menus, the increase of material caps. You can now recalibrate stats to different colors, and you can put talents on things that.
There's a new stat view in the inventory. There's all kinds of positive things, right?
Yeah.
The recalibration is one of those things where we wanted to open up and make planning and just making a build more intuitive. So that we open up the constraints a little bit, take off the training wheels a little bit. The other thing we've done, or we're working on right now, is make sure that there's no hidden knowledge in terms of what talent can roll on what brand. So like right now, some brands can't roll certain talents on their chess pieces,
Which is
or whatever.
bullshit.
And we want to clean that up and make sure that, okay, if there's a chess piece talent, it can roll on any
Otherwise,
brand.
you'll infinitely try and never get there and be like,
Right,
"Ah!"
and there's nothing to tell you that. So
Sure.
so we're working on that as well.
Yeah, y'all did
make sure.
terrible at
All
letting
right, what else do we
the.
have to cover here?
the
So the
gamers
target
know.
loot we mentioned before, the new gear. So
That should have been a
you mentioned
goddamn
before, all
tutorial.
brands will be available in every slot. That again is another big thing for people who are looking
Yeah.
to make builds. But named gear and named weapons are big.
Gonna have to go
I
find
can't think
Cassie.
of a more elegant way to put it. They're big. There's a lot of them. We
It
had
should be exciting, yeah.
before.
I've been
episode 2,
buying
there are
them
currently,
too.
What, 2 in the game?
Yeah, and names didn't mean the same thing. They had a name, and they had some talents, which are from the normal pool. But
Yeah.
what it really means now is named weapons have their own lore, their own presentation. They have their own special perfect talents, like perfect vigilance or perfect
Okay.
spotter or whatever.
I've seen the one that's been popping up on Reddit, the Ireldi chest one that gives you weapon damage if you don't take damage
Yeah.
for a certain amount of time.
And-
that one looks sick.
And they're variants of what are already in the game.
Sounds
but just
sick. Sounds like a future meta talent, though.
so they can be best in slot, and you can be excited when they drop because you know they have the potential to be best in slot.
Yeah, the thing that I find interesting, especially as I like collecting stuff in games and ticking off and making sure I have basically.
I
what
do
need.
that too.
I guess a player who is interested in making builds and who
Shout
has
out
a
to TD2
stash
map,
with one
interactive
of
map.
each of those,
Great
just has so many options available to them.
Site,
But the
I
other
guess
thing
you'd
as
call it.
well is that you can be excited to get them again because while that perfect talent is always on there,
Yeah.
everything else is rolled as normal.
You can't
you-
recal that talent.
You can't recal that talent, but everything else as per normal. So you can actually get a better version and hope for that god roll. And there is an excitement in doing that. But the choice to just make it variants of existing talents that are slightly better means there are no builds that are hinging on having those. Like they improve things, but it's not going to stop you from making any build you want if you don't have that like unicorn drop, as we like to refer to them as.
Okay, we've said it before, but there's what? How many?
I mean, I think there's 20 odd gear pieces.
Pretty sure
and-
there's more.
Yeah.
I can't.
In the end, I think
There's
we're
a
going to
lot.
have 36 odd total with weapons
Yeah,
and
yeah,
gear.
yeah. I was going to say around 35, but there. So I'm glad I was not too far
No,
off.
that's
there's a
right.
anyway. There's a lot,
Hmm?
more than 10 times what we have now.
And you know, since we're talking directly to our audience, one of the things about the Dark Zone is some of them will be exclusive
Yes.
to the Dark Zone.
Sweet.
Okay.
There will be ones that you can only get in the Dark Zone.
Okay. It looks like we're getting some questions about gear score and it not being reflective.
Should we dive into that?
Stuff.
I can orate about it all day, but
Why can't we
Alright,
just
let's go.
recalibrate it up to 500?
so just I'm mind reading a little bit now, but what people are looking for is that like if I have a 500 piece and a 490 piece, why is the crit chance on this 500 piece lower
Worse.
than on the 490
Mhm.
piece?
Are we talking about like the budget system?
Yeah,
Okay.
but what it really is, and we know that this is confusing, and
It is.
it's not within the scope of TU6 to change, is that 500 reflects the sum total of everything that's on the piece. Armor, all the stats, talents, mod sockets.
All right, makes sense.
So if it has, just one stat, that's going to be pretty high because it needs to be of power level 500.
Sure.
If it has many stats, they're going to be lower. If it has one stat that's really high, the other things are going to be lower. So therefore, they could be
Okay.
lower than on a 490 piece. And it's a hard system to understand. We get that. We sympathize with that. We're going to work hard on trying to explain and fix that.
You
in the
should have done
future,
that at
but
the
we
fucking
can't
release.
do that for TU6.
Okay.
Safe to say that mathematically a 500 has more stuff on it than a 490,
Yeah.
but it might not be the stuff you want.
Sure.
And if I could
But
just
now we
change
can
everybody's mind on
recalibrate it.
something is you can wear a 490. It's okay. If
Yeah.
it's better for your build, do it.
But
I know.
but
I know. And
I
eventually
know,
you'll
right?
find that
You want
perfect
that
roll
500
500 that will
build.
replace it. But don't be scared to wear the 490 that fits your build until
Yeah.
you find that.
yeah. But I hear you saying that it's potentially something that you're looking at making more streamlined in the
'cause
future. Okay.
we're not blind to the fact that it's confusing to people and that people are looking for it to change in the future.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. There was a kind of on track, but not. We were talking about named gear and weapons. There was one on the PTS, and I have a cool picture of it, and I wanted to show it off because it's so pretty. The KSG shotgun. And we're going to talk more about shotguns specifically in just a second because there's some
Ain't
We're gonna
things
go to the
we
weapons
need
Give
to
a
talk
damn
about.
about shotgun. Let's
I wanna go through the
PvP.
weapon type. This is going to be a long stream.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
But we're talking about cool stuff.
Chat,
so-
is it okay if we go over time? We're actually over time. We've been going 29 minutes.
There's a VOD later for the people that have to, make
I-
dinner.
I say keep it going. You're
Make
all right to stick around
dinner.
for a bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yes. Okay. The KSG shotgun looks like this.
Yep. New weapon for this.
Yeah, I don't care about
this
the
update.
fucking
There's
appearance. I want its
What can you tell us about this
functionality.
weapon?
So you see how it has two
Rail systems?
sort of tubes underneath the main barrel? Those are the
Oh,
actual
yeah.
tube magazines. That has
Okay.
Two
two
magazines,
magazines
alright.
parallel to each other that hold 6 shells each.
So
Okay.
So it's
13
in the end,
altogether?
not on PTS, but in the end, it's a 12-shot shotgun.
Okay.
It's a pump, and yeah.
Not hyped.
I think it's going to be cool. It makes a really neat noise as well.
I was
yeah.
going to ask about the sound stuff because that's kind of that excites me.
Like we
Really?
we do big things like exotics and gear sets and stuff, but we also want to inject just new regular guns and stuff into the game on a regular basis as well.
To be
and
clear,
this is one of those.
To be clear, the KSG is not an exotic. It is a new
Nope,
shotgun.
just
that
a new
can roll.
shotgun.
Okay. All right. Just got to make sure about that. I do. I wanted to make it very clear that that is an exotic because we do have an exotic coming in episode 2.
Right.
That is not a weapon exotic. This is the first
Yay.
armor exotic.
Armor exotic. What?
Is it the first?
I was like,
Say
Jesus
again.
Christ. Chest
We're
pieces
looking
and-
stupid now.
Say what? Say
I'm pretty sure
who?
it's the first one.
But the knee pads, right?
Yeah.
And they're actually Odessa's.
No, the gloves. What am I talking about?
Yeah, the
BTSU
BTSU gloves were out. So, but
Oh,
this
the
is
worst.
Odessa's knee pads. Odessa Sawyer, who you'll know from the
From
rooftop
Lost,
settlements.
yeah.
Yes.
This is her knee pads, and you'll recognize that she had something unfortunate happen to her leg, so you'll actually see these knee pads with bullet holes and stuff in them.
I'm sorry. I was really bad. Yeah, and the holster, of course.
And
Okay.
lots of armor.
I forgot about the holster. I remembered the gloves on my own.
Ella reminded us about
Yeah,
the
you
holster.
remember the holster.
Shout out. George. Apparently.
Fun story. I got the gloves once and I gave them to Solid because he could make better use of them.
I
I
mean,
never got them
that's
myself.
probably true about almost any piece of loot.
I was like, it's probably better for the game if I don't take these gloves and Solid has them because we're going to get
Solid
some good,
makes
we're
good
going to get
builds.
some good data out of that.
Yeah, shout out to
Thanks,
Solid.
Solid.
He's been helping out.
Good
with a lot
job,
of feedback
Solid.
on
Way to
his
be a
patches.
team player.
No, but the knee pads, so they
Accepting
do
a
a
free
fun thing,
exotic.
which is that they, among other things, exotics have lots of little quirks and details on it. But the big
Speaking
thing
of
is
which,
that
why
when
can't
you
we
kind of cover cover
trade
and you slam into that cover,
Equipment and
you
gear.
create an EMP,
Wouldn't
That's
that be a
cool.
badass system?
which is which correlates to what happened to
Imagine
you on the
that
way
happened.
there and so on and so forth. But
Crazy
the
trade.
big thing is
like Rocket League.
you can fight these pesky robot dogs and whatnot.
Those
using
are
these knee pads
Amy's.
without having to equip an EMP pulse or a jammer pulse.
Is the EMP, is an element of the EMP based on distance traveled like Nimble used to be?
I think so. Oh, we've iterated on these so much that I forget where we landed in the end. But I think there's an element of that. They've been on the PTS. People can try them out. That was not the final version, so we're iterating on them still, but they're going to be in.
Yeah. The good thing is these are very, I mean, if you're into kind of, what do we, like fashion the division, like defashion? I think that's what we went with. If you're into fashion, the division, these knee pads are sick looking. And we actually have an image of these knee pads. They're probably the prettiest piece of gear that is going to be in the game.
All right.
Can we take
Can
a
we
look?
peek?
Ooh.
Oh, goddamn.
Agent
A
Apparel is also
goddamn.
something I've heard about division fashion.
What is that, a Phoenix?
Agent Apparel. I like defashion because it's kind of terrible.
Oh, TD2, it's a Phoenix.
But those
makes
are
sense.
super cool.
There you go.
I like those.
Impractical,
who the
but
artist
yeah,
did those?
cool.
No.
All right, well, we'll find out. You're really good at what you do. Artist, person who made those.
Those are badass, I ain't
No,
gonna lie.
those knee pads look
They're
really
going to be there?
I just kind of feel a little bit self-conscious that we didn't remember the other two that exotics were in the game.
Nah.
Look, this is hard, okay?
Like TU6 has
On the
been
spot-
a ride as
Yeah.
well. Like we're so focused on the stuff we're currently working on that
I guarantee chat reamed us out, but I'm fine
Oh
with
yeah,
it.
no, I mean I wouldn't have said it in those words, but sure.
I don't blame you because they were, well,
We're
the
used to it,
BTS shoes
people.
were alright,
but no,
the fucking
exotic knee
holster.
pads.
Yeah,
But-
but I mean to sum up, like we've really put in new content. There's new content to play, a new spec, rebalanced everything, all of that. One of the things I wanted
I'm
to
hyped.
really bring home is that
3 weeks out, eh?
some people have
God
put a
damn
lot
it,
of
I
work
said
into
it
their
again.
builds. Some people have been.
Anybody get
showing
the reference with
disappointment
that coffee mug?
The fact that some component that their build is predicated on has changed in some way, and that they need to remake their builds or refarm or whatever. We know we're aware of that. It was a conscious decision that if we're going to do a major rebalance, we're going to do all of it at once. this patch.
1.7.
This is not something we intend to do often. This is a huge endeavor.
Yes, it is.
And we know that
and you
there's
got
going
to
to be
get it
new
right,
builds and new meta, and that's exciting. But that also
if
means
it fails, so
getting
does the
new
game.
pieces, which is why we've added so much new pieces.
Take your
into the game as
time,
well.
get this shit
So
right,
we're
y'all.
aware. We're aware that that can feel daunting to some, but this is the patch where that's going to happen. This is the rebuild patch.
Which is a shame that
While I
it's
have you
so
here, I
early
wanna
in the
get as much
game
info
to
about weapons as I
fucking
possibly
balance the
can.
whole
Let's
game.
talk weapons.
Let's talk weapons.
Weapons.
Weapon family by weapon family.
Mm.
SMGs in episode 2.
Let's talk about SMGs. So SMGs weren't really viable. They were underperforming in terms of raw damage. And a lot of them are kind of quirky. We have ones with big magazines, no extended magazines, so on and so forth. So they've almost all universally gotten a buff. Some of them a lot,
Nice.
some of them less.
love
but
me
like
some
all of them should
SMG
be now
play.
competitive. But we also made sure that in the final version of this patch, we've taken away
I still
critical
can't
strike
remember that
rate as
fucking
a feature
exotic,
in the
by the
game,
way.
which means that if your build is predicated on critical strike, which SMG builds tend to be, you're not going to have to keep track of the range to your target.
Okay.
That feature is just gone.
Okay. Assault rifles.
Assault rifle.
Probably what most people use.
Yep.
Sure, and assault rifles
does
are
that
jack
lamp
of all
keep
trades.
coming
They
off
were
and on?
pretty good.
Am I
The
tripping?
ones that were
Look behind
meta.
Hamish.
We did bring down everybody's favorite P416, which is, I'm sorry about, but we did bring up a lot of other things to be competitive. It's 5% adjustment to 8% adjustment on most assault rifles, just to bring them in line. You saw the pretty graphs before. And to make sure that while they don't beat the crap out of the Eagle Bearer, at least they start to approach being viable in most builds, right?
What about rifles? That's always been one of those ones
AKA
that's kind of
must have an
set
Eagle
So-
Bearer.
just on the inner
Yeah,
parts
and rifles are tricky because they're kind of bursty because they have bigger per shot damage. But overall, once you start looking at using them to fight elites and in-game content and stuff, they were underperforming.
Yep.
So most of them have gotten a pretty big lift as well.
the whole family.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some that were a little bit
Give me my
outliers that
urban
kind of
MDR
were brought
back.
down, but mostly they were adjusted upwards.
Okay.
Shotguns weren't in the PTS.
Oh, okay. I was going to save shotguns for last, but fine. All right.
Sure,
We'll do shotguns now.
So
Save-
shotguns,
That's the big
shotguns
one. Oh,
also
the lamp
had
just fucking
some
turned
problems
on.
in the end game. They're kind of bursty, but you kind of need to be able to use them against.
Save your budget
elites
and just
whatever.
get rid of fucking shotguns.
So shotguns have been changed to roll damage to armor.
No
as
melee
their-
damage anymore.
No melee damage bonus anymore. It was
What
an
a
experiment. It wasn't
waste.
working. Damage
How'd
to
you
armor
think
means
of
that
that?
they can scale a little better into endgame when you face more enemies with armor. We're going to keep track of and do more testing to make sure that they
yeah,
have
let's
the
melee
appropriate
an
PvP
elite that can
scalers so
drop
that
you in
doesn't
one
run away from
melee
us.
hit.
But we want shotgun builds to be viable, quite simply.
Yeah, because it's fair to say that they're not right now. But you kind of undersell that that's just like, oh, we just changed this thing to be from melee damage to armor damage. But that's big, man.
It is. And all of
That's
the
big,
other
man.
weapons had an inherently
I'm
useful
sorry,
bonus.
Hamish.
That's huge.
Uh,
it.
Whereas this was more defensive to kind of maybe knock out a rusher every once in a while. Whereas this is more like always on as a bonus.
All right, my favorite, marksman rifles. What's happening there?
Marksman rifles are just a tricky category because they can one-shot things if you have the right one. Mostly though, the ones that felt good already, your M700s, whatever, the carbon and stuff like that. We used those as a baseline and made sure everything else was kind of competitive with those. We tried to lift
Makes
everything
sense.
up to the ones that felt good already.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to get really specific now. What are you doing to my SVD?
SVD.
Because that's always been one of those ones that kind of like sits like kind of like rapidly firing enemies.
Yeah, so SVD is kind of in the mids between a marksman rifle
loved it in
and
TD1
a
as
rifle
well.
in terms of feel.
Yeah.
So it is lower damage than most of the other
Makes sense.
marksman rifles,
Okay.
just because you can fire so rapidly and stably. But I think it'll end up in a good place.
Okay. Whew. Okay. Also the LMGs. Apparently your microphone's disconnecting or something.
Maybe the antennas.
I don't know. We okay? All right. We seem to be
Sound
all right.
testing.
Yeah,
One,
you-
two,
you're still-
check.
you're still-
We're
One,
doing it live.
two.
No, we're good with
There you go.
batteries. I
Yeah.
don't know.
George is looking at us, looking confused.
As long as you can still hear Frederick, we are good. Okay, so LMGs we talked a little bit about.
And we saw the
bringing
graphs,
in line. So
mostly making sure that everything's competitive. M60 went down a little bit, but also got better over range. So
okay. Movement. Well, okay, no, we're going to go to the quality of life. We talked a
Yeah.
little bit about some of the onboarding stuff, but there's some inventory things that have changed. You can now sort through all gear in a new category.
yeah, so you can, if you've done a loot run,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you just want to go through everything you found, you can go into
Show me
this
new
new.
stuff.
Yeah, and just show me the latest stuff.
Hell
and I'll go through
yeah.
and sort it. And sorting
Hell yeah.
as well. You can mark things for donations.
Hell
for
yes.
recalibration. Just basically go through and sort things. 'Cause
That's
this is
what
a
I'm
looter game,
talking about
every
right
hoard
there.
Of stuff that you've gathered, and we made it easier for you to go through it. We're adding filtering, so you can like, hey, show me all of the critical strike gear. And so you can find
What?
things for your build, or show me
Hell
everything
yeah.
that's from a certain brand to see if you have all the pieces that you need.
Nice.
I got to wind it back a little bit. What's happening to the FAMAS?
Bring
People
it
are so
back.
obsessed with that gun.
Right. So, well, the FAMAS was a problem because we didn't have,
Extended mag.
quite frankly, a model for the extended mag.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't have a mag mod slots. Now it's going to have a mag mod slot, which means that you're going to have extended mag, so it kind of scales better into end game.
Thank
And
you.
yeah,
Thank
just gonna
you.
join the family.
Man, so many news bits.
Yeah.
So many news.
So much.
I
don't know how to
language,
English.
Hard.
Shout Sweden, you maybe worse at English. Also sidearms, obviously.
Sidearms,
we
who
haven't
gives a
actually
fuck?
really
Don't
touched
waste
that
time.
This particular patch, because they're not normally a main damage dealer. They're fine when you use them alongside your shield builds, etc., which will be something that I predict will pop up as a build.
Uh-oh, shout out to Joe.
But, yes. So, weapons. Let's go back to where we were. So, UI changes all around. There's a lot of cool new stuff.
I love the
you will experience that
filtering and the
very, very
fucking...
soon.
Man, that's some good shit.
I see a section here
I
on
still want an
movement.
app. Inventory app.
We have people, animators, coders, whatever, who are experts in movement, and they have to do work too.
That's good news.
So we never stop iterating and doing things. So the guys and gals upstairs have really focused on making sure that like vaults are snappier. You can go around corners on flat things now, which you couldn't before.
Vaults are pretty damn
making
smooth
sure that
already.
starts and stops from sprint are snappier, less inertia. You can combat roll after you drop down from a heavy landing.
Yeah, I
which is a
saw
new
that.
feature if you wanted to maintain your momentum
That's nice.
and going over high drops. Just all around, we'll probably never keep like iterating or stop
Never stop.
iterating on
We're never doing this again.
on the core movement and the core feel of
Yeah.
things. So yeah, I'd
That's
love
really
to hear
good.
feedback
Shoulder
on how snappy
swapping
things
while in
Is that in
third
the PTS?
person. I love that.
Some of it.
Not all
Ghost
of it.
Recon
okay,
got
no,
that
we'll
right.
Definitely keep an eye on that for when episode 2 comes out, because that's been something that since the start of the game, people have kind of
It's
in
been
the back of
a
people's
discussion, yeah,
minds. So really cool. Also, I love this one. You can now.
on quality of life. This is a good one
This is
for
a
me.
big one.
Oh,
Yeah.
what is...
Can switch specializations through the loadouts.
Thank
So you don't need to go
God.
to the best operations to
Yes.
I mean, to switch specializations.
What can you say? That's good. But
No
it
arguing
did,
there.
well, I mean, what it did
Can
mean
we save a
is
loadout
that
to a particular
it saves the spec
specialization?
with the loadout.
Yes.
So what if I want to use my, I don't know, DPS loadout with 2 different specs? So we realized people are going to need more slots. So there's also more loadout slots.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Bonus.
Yeah,
That's great.
Twice the amount.
Okay. And
Wow.
we talked about PvP last week in terms of the features that are being added, and obviously all the things we've addressed today in terms of the gear.
That's going to inform what
plays into
PvP
it.
feels like.
And the
right?
balance things are going to shift the meta. There's some other things in there that weren't addressed.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I think we went through before that we feel are worth mentioning, right? Like hipfire has always been a discussion in PvP, the fact that people kind of play at pretty close range and dance around each other with hipfire. We've tried this on the PTS Wave 2, and hipfire now forces you to walk.
Oh,
It's a panic
shit.
maneuver, and you're walking, kind of look like the Terminator.
Wow.
It should radically shift the
become
kind
a-
of close range dance and favor good aim.
You become a
Yeah.
sitting duck. with
Yeah,
the
you're,
fire.
yeah.
Yeah, I
A
mean,
bit.
you're exposing yourself
You better be a
to
tank.
people that do use ADS and aim at you.
Okay, cool. All right, before we move
Yep.
into kind of the end of the stream.
Suck it,
And
PC
questions and
players.
whatnot, yeah.
Heals are no longer going to heal enemies. Cool.
Yep. Launcher, those things that leave clouds, you can no longer get healed by enemies, which means that you can't be, you're not as afraid of where you drop them as you were before.
I think it's fair to say that's been driven by community feedback.
That's totally community feedback. Absolutely.
Just logical.
The Thieves' Den vendor has been improved. Cool.
Well, he's now a vendor.
Now a
And he
vendor.
sells cool stuff for currency.
Solid improvement.
Yep.
You've got the unique loot in the DZ you mentioned before.
Love that.
The other thing that I saw the other day, which I loved on the PTS, is all of the UI feedback to make things a little bit more clear as to what's happening. Because you would have situations where like, oh, something killed me.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
And it's kind of part of the build
More
game as
likely
well.
one
because
shot
how can
by
we
Amy.
have good, strong skill builds if we are afraid of
Houston?
letting skills do damage in PvP. And to do that, we had to go through them, make sure that they're dodgeable and readable, like that they give warning signs when they're used against you, so that you can counterplay them. So there's been a huge push to make sure that they have like markers on the ground where they're going to blow up, lines when they're targeting you, all of that stuff.
Okay.
All right. Okay, we're almost hitting the hour mark. We're going to really
What?
wrap up this stream.
Damn.
An hour.
Awesome UI feedback. I love the thing that I saw in the
Fook
PTS,
me.
you've now been pulsed.
Yeah,
Cool. I know.
just to know that. Yeah.
Actually
things
kind of
like that
flew
are
by.
Really cool.
Last thing on that, I know we're running late. I want to mention the pulse thing.
Okay.
Oh yes. Okay.
This
Sorry,
is-
we have to do it. It's
Yeah,
it's
we
really
have to do
important.
this. So one of the things that's still a big piece of feedback from our PvP players is that there's no real tactical counterplay in Conflict and in Dark Zone when you have constant pulse.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows where you are. It's a constant
Map
wall
Can't
hack.
use the concealed pulse
And
like
so we did an
used.
experiment in PTS where we increased the cooldown of everybody's pulse in those contexts. And it kind of didn't feel good. 'cause
No,
if your
that's a
build was
terrible
about
fucking way.
pulsing and using spotter and whatnot, kind of changed the feel of that. Especially when you were doing landmarks and fighting NPCs, your build stopped kind of doing what it was doing. So instead, what we've done is went in and made sure that you as a player can reduce how long you're pulsed. So in your spec, everybody's spec trees, the node that used to be crit protection is now going to be pulse protection or pulse
Yes.
resistance.
Okay.
So everybody's pulsed less just for having that. And then on y'all gear, which is the Dark Zone unique gear,
That
there's
sucks
even
right now.
further pulse protection, which
Nice.
means that even the most
there's
dedicated
a
skill
PvP
player,
meta
if they
right
pulse
there.
you and you're wearing all of that, you're only pulsed for 1 second and then you're gone.
Ooh.
If you've chosen to spec that way.
Okay, cool. That's super important. Yeah. Sorry to drag out the stream a little bit
Yeah,
longer, but
well,
that is really
Stuff
good.
needed to be said.
I like
Let's
that.
take a look at agent highlights for this week, and then we're going to wrap this whole.
Oh,
business
that's
up.
where
Our
I
first one
cut
is
off.
Another awesome.
Well, agents, I
awesome
hope y'all
hunter
enjoyed that
cosplay.
shit.
Let's take a look at.
That was a lot of
this.
news, a lot of
It's
information.
on the way. It's
We
gonna
got
be really
3
good
weeks
when it-
away until
There
that.
it is.
Oh,
so
that's
Otto
fucking
Simmons,
nice.
hunter cosplay.
Good
that's-
job, Otto.
That is badass. Kind
All right, but this is where I'll leave y'all. I hope
so-
y'all
Wow,
got
look
the
at watches
information
as
y'all were
well.
looking
I'm always
for.
terrified when you're outside doing cosplay shoots.
And
that people are going to get.
let's see how this goes, huh?
And
Maybe
this doesn't
make
help.
this a
The hunter
weekly thing.
cosplayers also always have actual
Maybe
real
I'll throw up the
access.
Which is
camera and
exactly
y'all
scary.
can actually
And
as we
see
close
me
out,
react to
hope
this
you got
shit.
what you came for. Share with your
But,
mates. Click those buttons that need the clicking. Want to catch us in action? Check out the squad as we stream. Schedule down below in the description. Swing on by and say hello. And as always, I say peace.